Today we're going to be talking about layers and distributing musical ideas. We're going to focus on these three: tar, timbre, articulation, and range. So we are talking how to separate ideas. How do we make sure that they sound separated and not like this? Sometimes we will want them to sound like this. Sometimes we will want them to sound like this. Sometimes we want more separation. Sometimes we want them to sound more together. Timbre. If we've got two musical ideas, and let's say it's violin 1 doing this musical idea, and then we've got violin 2 doing a similar musical idea, we are not gonna hear a lot of separation. It's gonna be hard for us to differentiate these two musical ideas. Now, if we've got these two musical ideas, let's say violin 1 first musical idea and oboe second musical idea, it's gonna be easier for us to separate these two musical ideas. Simple as that. Or if we've got violin 1 and then we've got trumpets, easier because different timbres, different color. Rhythm or articulation. If we've got one musical idea and then we have a second musical idea, the first idea is kind of like long notes and the second idea is more like short note staccato, it's gonna be easier for us to separate, to hear the two musical ideas because different articulation or different rhythm. The first one is a slower melody quarter notes and the second one is a staccato rhythm 16th notes. It's gonna be easier to separate those ideas, even if it's the same timbre, even if it's the same register, which is the third element. This is the most obvious one and maybe the most powerful. If we've got two musical ideas and one is here higher in register, the other one is lower in register, even if it's the same timbre, even if it's the same articulation or the same rhythm, it's gonna be easy for us to separate those. And then after this, we've got a few more things, and these are the three more powerful: timbre, articulation, and range. Now we've got other things that will help separate different musical ideas. Dynamics, if we've got something that's forte and something that's piano, it's gonna make it easier to understand the two different musical ideas. Line direction, if we've got something that's going up and something that's going down in terms of melodic direction, it's gonna be easier for us to see that even if it's in the same register, in the same range, in the same color, in the same type of articulation, if one goes up and the other goes down, it's gonna be easier. Then we've got articulation, which is basically this, the rhythm. And then when it comes to production, we would have panning and depth. One idea here and one idea there. In terms of panning, then it's gonna be easier for us to separate those ideas. We've got the violins here and the trumpets there. It's gonna be very easy for us to separate or identify those musical ideas, not just for panning in this case, panning and timbre. And then finally depth. If we've got one musical idea that's closer here and another one that's farther away, it's gonna be again easier for the listener to identify these two musical ideas. Clear example, when it comes to this more cinematic sound with epic percussion, orchestra will sit a little farther away, and with orchestra I mean the melodic orchestral instruments, and the percussion, it will sound a little bit closer, a little more in your face. On purpose, we create these two spaces to separate these two ideas. But if we've got the orchestra and we've got a shaker, we can have that shaker blend with the orchestra, then we would move it farther away, or we can bring it closer and we're gonna separate that shaker from the orchestra. It's gonna sound drier. So we've got timbre, articulation, range. We've got the others that we have described: 1, 2, 3. You can use one timbre, or we can use two articulation, we can use 3 range to create separation, or we can combine the 3 of them for extra separation, or not. You can combine the 3 of them not for extra separation, but the opposite, to make it feel like they are all going together. And that's when we are doubling, when we want to create a blend of instruments. But basically, less elements in common, more separation. The easier for the listener to understand them as different things, or the more elements in common, less separation. Let's just go for an example. So if we want something that goes together with this is violins 1, we could have violins 2. Now what's gonna happen? We're gonna do the same timbre, literally is almost the same timbre. Then we've got the same articulation. I'm gonna just repeat this melody, and then it's gonna be the same range. It's gonna sound a little bit thicker for sure, but it's gonna be kind of like the same thing. Let's now experiment, and instead of same timbre, we're gonna keep same articulation, same range, and then different timbre. It's much easier to separate these two elements, right? But what do we have here? Not just separation in timbre, in this case, but also panning, right? Because the trumpets are in the opposite side. Let's go with articulation or rhythm. So in this case, now we've separated articulation and range. We've got the violins line here, and then we've got the lower strings. There's a lot of separation, not just because of that, but also because the orchestration is not done. We've got a big gap here that's not exactly desirable. We still need to orchestrate this a little bit, but this just demonstrates how easy it is to separate ideas. And in this case, one more time, we've got similar timbre, but slightly different. We could say it's quite different instrument, different articulation and a different range. So we are getting more and more separation. If we did this with low woods, we would even gain more separation. We did register, we did rhythm, we did timbre, we did dynamics a little bit. Let's do this for a second. So here we've got a descending line. If we've got in the same register, same timbre, the same color, the same articulation, and same direction, obviously, it feels to us essentially like just high strings. But if the second line, we find an ascending line that counterpoint-wise it works. So I wanted to demonstrate two things here. These are the two melodic statements. One goes down, one goes up. So here we're talking about line direction, shape. It's different direction, so it helps differentiating the two. And also, if I bring the modulation, there's a moment where the lower beat goes up and then goes down. And that other one, it starts down and it goes up, and we can see violins 1 fading out and violins 2, we can hear them more towards the end. If we just isolated this note, we can differentiate them, not at the beginning. At the beginning it feels like the same thing, but then because we've got two different dynamics moving also differently, we can identify one and then the other one. The first time my orchestration teacher shared this with me, it's like, this is it. You just come up with a good melody or good musical ideas. This is the golden nugget. This is the thing gonna help you distribute your ideas correctly. And with this and the good balance, you're all set. And then you've got using your sample libraries, the syncastration and all those other things. But this is the foundation of everything.